Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you?
Good. COVID's moving along, but I'll get better. In all fairness, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it is, but at the same time, it's like a hangover, but without the payoff of a good night out. But we've got a lot of good gaming stuff to talk about, and there's been drama. Let's face it, be it the My PlayStation stuff, the Activision deal, which hopefully will come to a close soon. Lots of varied news topic stuff, and one of the things I want to start off with has nothing to do with video games in general. Kind of, Ash Ketchum from Pokemon finally won. Won the tournament.
Boy, he finally did
it. like the reason I bring it up is because I used to watch this Pokemon anime as a kid in primary school, and it's like he couldn't win then, and he's been 10 years old for 25 years, and yeah, he won, and all these news sites were talking about him as if Ash Ketchum was a real person, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, seeing Ash win. I don't know, it stirred something up in me. Even though I haven't watched Pokemon in 20 years or something, I don't know, it was really cool to see Ash finally win, which was kind of weird. You obviously saw this stuff, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a huge deal. It was in sports outlets, it was in gaming outlets, all over. And as someone who grew up on Pokemon as well, my first game I ever had, basically for my own, was Pokemon Red and Blue on Game Boy. So I'm very intimately familiar with it. Grew up watching the anime, so it definitely brought a smile to my face and made me really happy to see Ash finally win. And it was just a good moment.
Yeah, and that was the Pokemon back in the day was huge. When it kicked off in the 90s, Pokemon Red and Blue and then Gold and Yellow and all that stuff, there was nothing really like it. Everyone at school played that game. And, there was the whole Pokemon card collection thing. I honestly think there'll never be anything like that ever again, the way Pokemon took off in the 90s. But yeah, it was cool seeing Ash win the whole thing. And yeah, I actually found my original copy of Pokemon Red the other day.
Oh man, that's a treasure. That belongs in a museum, definitely.
Yeah, and the sad thing about it is that I used to have really OP Pokemon. I used to have a Mewtwo that had so much health and a really high defense stat to the point where no one could beat him. And then it was really sad the other day because the batteries in those Nintendo cartridges die, which means you lose all your data. And the batteries last in those cartridges for about 15 years. And I don't know, it was kind of sad, the fact that I lost so many Pokemon because I spent so many hours as a kid playing those games. But yeah, Pokemon, good times. Honestly, I think Xbox and PlayStation really need something like that. Whenever there's a monster collecting game coming to consoles, I always talk about it because I would like to see something that I take off. I know Temtem is out now. I really need to get to that. Nexomon, which is a lot like Pokemon. You can play it on Xbox right now. Yeah, highly recommend it. But yeah, Pokemon stuff. And there's a lot of anniversaries going on at the minute. So Xbox Live turned 20 years old today.
That's wild.
Yeah, and the thing is, it completely changed the whole online landscape for gaming going forward because, yeah, the PlayStation had some functionality, the Dreamcast did, but Microsoft decided to make broadband the thing you needed to play online. And I remember at the time, people would be complaining because broadband in the UK at the time, it wasn't really widespread. It was kind of expensive compared to other internet services because dial-up was cheap and everyone had it, at least where I lived. But yeah, I remember playing Xbox Live back in the early 2000s and my mind was blown. There was nothing really like it. Playing Halo multiplayer, it was incredible. And 20 years later, we're downloading games, we're downloading DLC, map packs. You have updates that are bigger than games sometimes, which is, I'd say, the downside of online stuff. But yeah, 20 years, that's a long time. Really makes me feel old. So yeah, I think that's really cool to bring up. Oh yeah, and Assassin's Creed turned 15, which I love that franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. I talk about it all the time. we're going to hopefully see Assassin's Creed Mirage gameplay at the Game Awards. It just makes sense. You're a fan of Assassin's Creed, right?
Yeah, especially the old school ones. Like I've dabbled in the newer ones, but there's just something about the first one and the second one, like in the Middle East during the Crusades, or like the Renaissance Europe. It was the Sistine Chapel, or you're in Damascus and during the Crusades. It was just something about them. It was so brand new, and just this concept of you're part of this order and you're at war with this other action, and then there's all this historical stuff mixed in. But then, you're really in two timelines. You're in the past, but not really, and then you're in the future, which is the present, and all this tech, and it was just crazy idea, and they nailed it.
Yeah, and that was one of those games that really pushed the 360 back when that came out, because like the crowd tech, like there wasn't really crowds in video games to that scale before. And 2007 was a big year for the 360 because you had things like Mass Effect, Halo 3, Assassin's Creed, BioShock. All in all, it was an amazing year for gaming. And hopefully 2023 will take the crown. I'm hoping. But yeah, great year for gaming. I think as like the years move on, we can like look back fondly on like other years and think will we ever have that again? Because everyone looks back at 2007 super fondly. Everyone does. And there was nothing really like it. 2010 was great, but like 2007 just sticks out. But yeah, for Xbox that was a strong year. And Assassin's Creed is a big franchise for Xbox. Like it always has been. They've marketed several games with them, even the more action-orientated ones that we have now with Valhalla. Valhalla was basically a launch title for the Series X and S. But yeah, I think Assassin's Creed Mirage, that should be a good game. I think that's going to be going back to the roots, which I think a lot of people want. I really need at least one game like that. Assassin's Creed is a big enough franchise to the point where I think they could do multiple different games. Have an RPG one year, have a regular game the next. Because like we all know the Assassin's Creed fan base was split down the middle with, Origins. Like you obviously saw that, right?
Yeah, there has definitely been kind of a division among the fan base about modern decision making in the franchise.
Yeah. I have to say, Logan, before we continue, there's been a humming in the background for the past 30 seconds from your end. Don't know what that is. Probably just some electronic stuff. But yeah, Assassin's Creed, 15 years old, and which just makes me feel ancient. Anyway, we'll move on. When we talk about getting old and all that stuff, I want to talk about social media, because social media's been around for a long time. We are in 2022, ongoing to 2023. We use social media every day to share videos, screenshots, GIFs, news articles and stuff. And Twitter's been pretty much, at the head of, I'd say, the gaming community for social media for 15 years. I remember people posting gaming news in the late 2000s. And, people have been freaking out about Twitter for the past, 2 weeks now. Bear in mind, I don't think Twitter's going away at all. But earlier in the week, Aaron Greenberg posted his Mastodon link. And this is a social media I checked out last week, talked about it on the show. Its setup is horrendous because you have to pick a server, even though you can talk to people in other servers. They pretty much act like email clients. But anyway, its usability is trash compared to Twitter. Twitter is so simple. Its ease of use is beautiful. Twitter, back in the day, you could literally just post pictures and videos and that was it. And over the years, it's gotten more functionality. You can post straight to Twitter from your consoles now, which is really cool. Being able to do that since 2016. But I think, as gamers, I see a lot of people like freak out saying, we should move to, Instagram and all that stuff. Discord's being brought up, Mastodon's being brought up. And like, I think it's gotten to a point where people use Twitter so much they're panicking. Like, even me, a little bit, I was thinking, like, what do we do if Twitter goes away? Because it's very functional. Whenever I make a video or a podcast, I post it on there because I have an audience that will see the link. And, I like to talk about new games, old games. I post clips literally every day of what I'm playing. And then you have, Mastodon. Do you know Mastodon? You can't post GIFs. Like, that's my thing on Twitter. You can't post, like, Logan, what's your thought on that? You can't post GIFs on Mastodon.
Well, that's a non-starter right there. I mean, GIFs are like ingrained in, communications and just like everyday life. Like, it's the point. It's like dictionary approved. Everything. Everybody knows what a GIF, a GIF, whatever your pronunciation is. Like, it's part of meme culture, and just like the idea that you can't post those on there is, yeah, that's a non-starter. That's not cool.
Yeah, and when I wrote down the topic, I actually wrote Mastodon LMAO because it's just not, you can't compare it. So while I don't think Twitter's going away, I think people should maybe broaden their horizons. Try some other social medias. I will say this: I think people posting Instagram and wanting that to be a gaming community thing will not take off because it's not the same. It's very individualistic focused. You have someone posting their content and you have people replying. Whereas on Twitter, it's more of a social feed. And, this has been a sort of a topic for the past, 2 podcasts now. But if Twitter hypothetically went away, which I don't think it will, like, I can't imagine where the gaming community would go because people literally make content off Twitter. Like, people, like, make memes and, like, post, like, fanboy reactions and stuff. And it can be quite entertaining. But I don't know, like, people freaking out. I think they should calm down. Yes, Mastodon is trash. I made an account and it's like, it's not the same. Let's face it. And by the way, on Twitter you have a GIF library. So if you search a key term and it shows you a bunch of GIFs, you don't have that on Mastodon, which is kind of terrible because that means you have to go and find the GIF on Google or make it yourself. Now for me, that's not really an issue. I pretty much do that all the time anyway. But for most people, they don't want to make GIFs. Like, it's time consuming. And yeah, we'll move on because, it can be a bit tiring. But yeah. While we're talking about aging things, I want to talk about Nintendo. Now, Nintendo, they basically one of the reasons I got into gaming. And honestly, if it wasn't for Nintendo, gaming wouldn't be where it is today. In the 80s, gaming died, and then they brought it back with the Nintendo Entertainment System, where it wasn't a game system, it was an entertainment system, and it was a toy, and that's basically what brought it back. And over the years, they've changed different types of hardware and stuff, different types of formats. And anyway, when they came out with the Nintendo Switch, obviously you couldn't play your Wii U games because there was no disc drive, and the architecture was different. So going into how popular the Switch is, you'd think, well, obviously, they're going to make a Switch 2. And obviously, you'll be able to carry forward your massive library of games because the Switch has arguably the best Nintendo library ever. Bigger library than the Wii U, the Wii, the Super Nintendo, the N64, the list goes on. Well, anyway, backwards compatibility is a huge thing for me. I think it's extremely important because over the years, we lose so many games. Architectures change. Like, let's look at the Xbox 360 and PS3. The Xbox 360 was essentially a Mac in a console-shaped box, and you had the PlayStation 3, which was cell architecture, which nobody liked at all. And we lost so many games from that generation. If you want to play X-Men Wolverine Origins, you can't. You can't. The biggest benefit of PC gaming is that you get to keep your games, you can emulate them and all that stuff. Well, on consoles, when the architecture changes, you basically lose all of that. So even though we do have backwards compatibility on Xbox, we have about 600 360 games, about 50 or so original Xbox games. But when you compare it to the rest of the library, it's a small number. So it looks like the Nintendo Switch may not have backwards compatibility, according to one of the higher-ups at Nintendo when they were talking about moving technology forward and how backwards compatibility is difficult going forward from, one piece of technology to the next. But honestly, I think it's a huge disaster of a move if they don't have backwards compatibility. Because, again, people bought into the Switch, they loved the library, and now it may look like it may not be backwards compatible in a time where everyone's talking about backwards compatibility. The PlayStation 4, the Xbox Series X and S, backwards compatible. And then you'd have Nintendo kicking off a new generation next year with none. And I think the reaction would be nuclear online. What do you think, Logan? Because we talk about BC all the time.
Yeah, BC is why I stuck with Xbox during the dark times. It's absolutely essential, I think, to a platform for you to honor your past and keep bring things forward as well to continue their legacy and more people to enjoy them, the accessibility, yada yada yada. For the Switch 2 or whatever they want to call it to not be backwards compatible, that would further an image of Nintendo being able to pull some stuff and get away with it, and that their fans they'll just sucker their fans into doing stuff anyway, like charging a crazy amount for an amiibo just to get a fast travel or save feature for a game, or the Switch tax, where games are more expensive on Switch than they are on other consoles, just because, or there's the well-known joke that first-party games from Switch don't drop lower than $39.99, even if it's like Breath of the Wild, which was a literal Switch launch title, like stuff like that. They're able to pull some stuff because of who they are. I mean, they've earned their status and their rank. They saved gaming. I love them. I grew up with them. They got me in the gaming period. But them not doing BC, if that ends up being the case, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, that's a major problem. And especially when, you have this extensive, huge library, and Nintendo already has an image of not giving a rat's, what, about, you know, accessibility for some of their older games. Like, instead of being BC or whatever, they make you have to pay a subscription fee to access cloud versions of these games on a subscription service, or we're just going to remaster it or report it instead of just letting you carry it over, or like they crack down hard on emulators and other things because people can't play Earthbound something on their new console, or they're just notoriously rigid about things. And if they do this, that's only going to further that image.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at the SNES Classic Mini, uh, they released a unreleased game, an unreleased Star Fox game that you can only play on that Mini. And to me, that's just bizarre. Like, I'm not sure if you can play it on the Nintendo like streaming thing or emulation thing, but like, just the fact that they have games locked to hardware where it's unnecessary. Like the Mario All Stars collection, they literally pulled off the shelves and literally pulled off digital shelves because they could. Like, they made a game that sold over 10 million units and decided to stop selling it because the anniversary for Mario was over. PlayStation, Nintendo, Steam, Epic Game Store, anyone else on Earth would never do that. But they pulled a 10 million plus seller game off the store just because. Like, they get away with it. And, BC is important because we lose so much to time. Like, I'm looking at my game collection right now, and I have Transformers, War for Cybertron, and Fall of Cybertron games in plastic, ready to play for a rainy day. I've never played them. I've always wanted to play them, and the games have insanely like high reviews when it comes to like usability and stuff. And gamers tend to love those Cybertron games. Well, you can't really play them on modern consoles unless you have Fall of Cybertron, the port, digital, and that's it. The PlayStation VR2 isn't backwards compatible. And I don't know. It just seems like companies trying to get away with this stuff when they can, because like Microsoft's proven that backwards compatibility can be a thing. They have a whole team dedicated to getting these updates out. Like, you can play Red Dead Redemption, the 360 game, in 4K, and it looks incredible on Xbox Series consoles and Xbox One X. You have FPS boost. When we're talking about Assassin's Creed, that runs at 4K 60 FPS now with auto HDR. And that's an Xbox 360 game from 2007. Like, it's incredible what they can do. And I just think that going forward, Nintendo and PlayStation really need to think about their legacy. Because the thing over Xbox that people say that Nintendo and PlayStation has is legacy games, when in actuality they don't really care about their legacy titles. And I just think it's a shame, because we're going to lose so many games. Like, let's say hypothetically the Switch isn't backwards, or should I say the Switch 2 isn't BC. One, the anger online is going to be ridiculous, but people are going to lose like 1,000 games. Like there's like over 1,000 games on the Switch store. So yeah, it's an unfortunate thing if it happens. But again, people have to voice their opinions, talk about BC, because these companies pay attention, Before we continue, if you're enjoying the show, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Want the channel to grow and the podcast to grow and all that stuff. Anyway, so last week a game came to Xbox Game Pass. A game that's been on PC for about 6 months, probably a little bit longer. And it's like a 16-bit game where all you do is move a character on screen. And that game is called Vampire Survivors. Now, I saw streamers play this like 6 months ago, and I thought, it looks cool, but I never really knew what it played like. And all you do is literally move a dude on screen. That's it. You don't control where your attacks are going or anything. You just move a character. So I thought, how can this be addictive? You skip forward 3 minutes, and I was like, okay, that's why. It is arguably one of the most addictive games I've ever played in my entire life, to the point where I was playing it for hours. I may be terrible at the game, I'll admit. I'm terrible beyond belief, unless I have garlic. But like, it is one of the most addictive games I've ever played in years. And I found out recently that the game is made by someone that used to work in the casino industry. And even the game's only like £4, and there's no microtransactions at all. So getting into it is fine. It's safe and all that stuff. You're not threatened by microtransactions or ads or anything. But yeah, it's a cheap game. It's in Game Pass, and it's fun. Logan, have you played it?
Oh yeah, I'm hooked on it. It's awesome. I'm loving it. I've beaten 2 of the levels so far. There's a bunch of them. And then, like, basically the goal is to survive 30 minutes, and then the mission ends. And like, there's so much replayability because there's different characters you unlock or find, purchase, and they have different starting gear and starting abilities. Then you can upgrade your items and stats before you go into matches to carry over permanently. You find hidden relics and items, characters in game, and then you unlock a grimoire which tells you customize, like I can combine this weapon and this weapon to get a super weapon that does this, and it's so much fun. And the fact that you literally just walk around with the left stick and then occasionally hit up or down, and you can choose between an item, or hit A to select. Like, that's the game. But it starts off really slow, but then by the end, you're sweating it, because you've got just this unholy horde of enemies just surrounding you, where it's like there's not an inch of space on the screen, and you just have all these just like Doctor Strange, like the max abilities flying everywhere, trying to obliterate all these enemies. And it's a blast, and it's on my game of the year list for so far.
Yeah, it surprised a lot of people because, again, it's like 16-bit. It looked like it released on the original Nintendo, but it's like ridiculously addictive. It's good, and it just keeps bringing you back. And I think that's one of those things where, like, you have these indie developers making these games that no one else is really making. And I think, 2022 has been a great year for games. I think it's been a year where indie developers have really taken off, because we've had games that you haven't really seen before. Like, we're going to talk about Somerville later in the show, but there isn't a game like Somerville. And Vampire Survivors. But yeah, I highly recommend people play Vampire Survivors, because it's incredibly addictive. Like, I think that, I think those types of games have a place on the platform because they get people talking. Like, I didn't think a 16-bit game would have people's attention for as much as it has. Phil Spencer's been talking about it. A lot of people are posting the clips on Twitter. You can't really see what's going on because there's so many enemies on screen, but it's just so addictive. I highly recommend people download it. And I think it's only like 500 megabytes. It's a ridiculously small file. Anyway, we got a bunch of new Game Pass announcements, and we got Insurgency Sandstorm coming to Game Pass. Gungrave Gore, that was announced a while ago. That comes, I think, next week on Game Pass. Lapin, which is a 2D platformer, and Soccer Story, and something called Norco, which I've also heard about that. You also have Dune Spiced Wars coming to PC Game Pass, Ghost Law coming to PC Game Pass, and Warhammer 40k Darktide PC Game Pass, which is coming to consoles later date. And I'll post about that when we get news info. But yeah, it's a decent drop. I mean, Soccer Story alone has my attention. It's made by the developer of Descenders, who's been vocal in the past about Game Pass releases being a success. And yeah, Insurgency Sandstorm had a lot of fun playing this in the past over a friend's house. But yeah, Logan, what do you think about all these new games?
Yeah, it's a nice drop. There are definitely several I want to check out. And I mean, along with Pentiment and Somerville, which just launched today, we've got our hands full for the next month on Game Pass.
Yeah, that's a decent drop. But what surprised me most is that they dropped it on the 15th of the month, which is weird because normally we get a list when it's like the 22nd to the 25th. So it leads me to think that maybe we're going to get some bigger drops earlier on in the month in December. Maybe that's just some high hopes. We don't really have a lot of December game releases, but I don't know, just the fact that they announced it today seemed a bit out of place. But hey, I'll take more games. It's always a good one. And yeah, we're going to move on to talking about Evil West now, because I think this is going to be a topic people talk about. So Evil West, this game where you defend the Wild West from vampires and demons. I've been talking about this game for the past year and a half since it was announced. It looks incredible. And it came out yesterday, all the resolutions and performance modes. So it's going to be 1080p, 60 FPS on Xbox Series X. It's going to have a 4K 30 mode on Xbox Series X. It's 1080p 30 on Xbox Series S. And 4K 30 on Xbox One X. So you can imagine the reaction online was positive. I'm joking, it was the opposite. People freaking out in the comments. Go to the tweets right now. Like, the replies are oof. And I've noticed with A Plague Tale Requiem, and you have Gotham Knights, that don't have the performance modes people want. And then the previous two games I mentioned don't have performance modes. They are 30 FPS, and people are bringing up, do we need pro consoles now? And I don't think we're there yet. If you think about the past 2 years, we are used to 60 almost across the board. Every game nearly is pretty much 60, or you have different modes. And I think developers have to be more like Techland. So Techland came out with Dying Light in, I believe it was February. And it came out with a 4K 30 mode, a ray tracing mode, and a performance mode that was 1080p, 60 FPS. And the cool thing about Techland is that they come out with news updates and basically, performance updates, literally updates for your game every month or so. So basically 2 months, I should say about a month after the game release, they came out with a community focus patch. This was basically putting in things in the game that the community wanted. And one of those things that the community wanted was a higher resolution for the performance mode. Well, they didn't do that. They put out something better. It's called balanced mode. It's 1440p, 60 FPS. And fans like myself and pretty much everyone else in the community that have an Xbox Series X that plays Dying Light 2 are very satisfied with it. In fact, it performs better in most cases than the performance mode, and it looks better. And they've put out a few patches since where it looks even better. So my point is that rather than going to this 40 FPS mode, which I'm seeing some developers do, God of War's doing it, Spider-Man's did it, I believe, Horizon Zero Dawn, a lot of Sony games, I highly recommend do the Techland thing. Put out a balanced mode that's a higher resolution at 60 FPS, because balanced mode for Dying Light 2 got a lot of people's attention, and the community literally just stopped talking about, resolution all of a sudden, because the game looks gorgeous and it's at 60. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because we're at a point 2 years into the generation where this topic seems to be coming up a lot in the past month.
I mean, yeah, whether it's, Potato S or, FPS this on Plague Tale, yada, 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 the topic won't go away. Like, Gotham Knights was a big one that people kept going on about. I agree. Like, I think the balanced approach is perfect idea for this situation. Just like make it where you've got your performance mode, you've got your FPS focused, and then you got one that's kind of more middle of the road that does well for both. Like that just seems like a pretty good fix to me for the situation going forward.
Yeah, because like having like a happy medium, because like I'll admit, going into this generation, I honestly thought I was going to play everything with ray tracing on, because I think ray tracing, it looks amazing, but like I don't know, like 2 years into the generation, I don't really care. Like it looks good, don't get me wrong, but at every opportunity, I've picked the performance mode. You know, Cyberpunk performance mode, everything else performance mode, and I don't know. I think ray tracing doesn't add enough to the point where we should move away from performance. Because think about it, the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation was plagued with 30 FPS. 90% of those games were 30, and we kind of dealt with it. You know, the Xbox One X and PlayStation 4 Pro came out, and then we got some performance modes, and people were like, I like this 60 FPS thing on console. And then with the Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5, across the board, I'm looking at my shelf and it's like all of them are 60. Like all of them. And now we're in the end of like 2022 and people are freaking out, thinking that we need, pro consoles 2 years into a generation. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think just developers need more time. Like every game across the board has been delayed. Like think about it. Like there's like 40 games releasing in February, and most of those games were meant to come out later this year. And if I honestly think if a Plague Tale got delayed and Gotham Knights, we would have performance modes, because it just seems bizarre that all of a sudden we have these three, games. Although Evil West does have a performance mode, but it's like I don't know, like 1080 60 on Evil West seems a bit low, because Dying Light looks better in my opinion graphically, and it's clearly a way more demanding game with what's going on screen, being an open world and all the zombies and stuff. And yeah, they put out a balanced mode, and I haven't really seen many other developers put out a balanced mode when clearly that fixed an issue the community had. I don't know. I'd be interested what people in chat think, because, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love 60 FPS. 30 FPS is not a deal breaker for me. Like, I've never played a game at 30 and just rolled my eyes and thought, I can't play this. Because, again, I play BC games a lot of the time, and a lot of those games are 30. I play a lot of Xbox 360 games, and I used to play the original Mass Effect game. You were lucky if you got 15 frames per second a lot of the time. But, like, I don't know, like 60 FPS, to me, it should be the go-to standard. A balanced mode is needed in more games. Again, I've got footage on right now. And here's the thing, props to Techland. They support their games like no one else. They've put out multiple updates.
Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, like they still supporting the first Dying Light, which released in, I think, 2015. Like, it's incredible, like, the support they put out for their games. Earlier on in the year, they put out an Xbox Series X update for Dying Light, and it's got 60 FPS, and it's got 4K now, and it's like, that level of support I don't expect from everyone making a single-player game, especially if they're not open world. But that, yeah, you have Dying Light just putting these updates out there that people want. Like, nobody asked for a balanced mode. We wanted just a higher resolution on the performance mode, and they did a compromise. They put something out that was better, in my opinion. And as someone that used to play Dying Light on performance mode, balanced mode, performance better, noticeably better, and it looks better at the same time. Because the problem with Dying Light 2 is that when it rains, the screen looked like it had like droplets on it, but when you had such a low resolution, I'll admit, Dying Light 2 looked like a bag of crap. But with balanced mode, it's not an issue at all. 1440p is perfectly fine. In fact, I like 1440p. It's a noticeable jump from 1080p in my opinion. Honestly, I think the Xbox One X spoiled games for me, because like I like higher resolutions now. But yeah, hopefully developers pay attention to, again, Techland. They support games like no one else. I highly recommend more people play that. Dying Light 2 is an incredible game. It's got co-op. They fixed all the co-op bugs now, by the way. You can play that. I think it's 4-player co-op now. But yeah, people need to play that game. In Evil West, I'm buying it day one. It releases next Tuesday. I just hope they pay attention to, the community, because again, 30 FPS, 4K, I get it, but give us 1440p, please, for the love of everything. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so Square Enix, they are marketing their games as they should, and they're obviously marketing Crisis Core, which comes out in December, I believe. And it looks good. And I've been after playing Crisis Core since it released on the PSP. I never got it back in the day, but when it was announced for the Xbox Series X, I'm like, right, I'm getting that. But every time they post about the game, you can imagine what the replies are. Where's Final Fantasy VII Remake on Xbox? This is a topic we talk about a lot. And if people are sick of it, I apologize. But they are going to see some blowback off this game's release, because I don't think it's going to sell as well as they hope, especially off the fact that they're not putting the remake on the console. Because why would you put the spin-off / prequel on a platform where apparently Japanese games don't sell? You see my point, Logan? Because people just going on about people don't buy the games on Xbox, but how can they sell on Xbox if they don't put them on the platform?
Yeah, Square is a walking paradox at this point. I mean, they live in their own little world and play by their own little rules, and it's just it's almost like some exec is in a dartboard blindfolded, and he's sitting in his chair with the darts, and he swirls around in his chair and just throws a dart and hope it hits something. And then if it happens to hit the board, that's what they do. Because there's no consistency, no predictability. It's ridiculous. And chasing NFTs, they're selling their Western studios for pennies on the dollar. They're not meeting expectations because their expectations are ludicrous. It's just Square being Square, and I get people being mad about Final Fantasy VII. I think it's dumb, too, that it's not coming to Xbox, but hey, Sony money tastes good, I guess, so it happens.
Yeah, it's just happening a lot. They put the occasional game on Xbox and then it won't sell. But here's the thing, right? Many people have told me, Jamie, I'm not going to support this game because we're not getting the remake. And I honestly can't blame them. I can't, because, I want it. I want to buy it because I've always wanted to experience Crisis Core, but, the fact that they're not putting their most beloved game, or I should say remake of their most beloved game ever, on the platform where people are asking for it. We got bloody Kingdom Hearts on consoles, on Xbox consoles. Hopefully we'll get Kingdom Hearts 4. But, I don't know, it's they got rid of Square Enix. I should say, by the way, every time I want to say Crystal Dynamics, I say Square Enix for some reason. They've just been interchangeable for so long. But whenever they got rid of Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics, it almost feels like they've run out of reasons and things to say about what they can blame, the lack of sales on. Because nobody bought Star Ocean, the Divine Force, at all. I'm not seeing anyone talk about it online. Yet, they're going to complain about sales somehow in some way, and who they can blame it on. Final Fantasy 14, people have wanted that on Xbox for ages. And MMOs work on console. We have Star Trek Online, Neverwinter Nights, the Elder Scrolls Online. We can call Fallout, whatever that's called. What's the Fallout MMO called?
76.
76, bloody hell. But yeah, that's basically an MMO. MMOs work on console. I keep port begging Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I'll continue to port beg that game to come to consoles, because I love Star Wars. But yeah,
I'd play 100% on console.
Yeah. By the way, BioWare, that just seems like such an obvious move. It's free to play. You buy the expansions. It just seems like an easy get. And plus, I think they could put that on a controller. If you can get Star Trek Online to work on a controller, which is horrendous, by the way, they can get Star Wars to work. But yeah. And the thing is, we have a ton of Final Fantasy games on Xbox. A lot. We have so many Final Fantasy games on Xbox that I actually have a folder or a group dedicated to Final Fantasy. So the fact that we've seen them in the past means that they obviously sell. Because I don't like this notion that Xbox gamers don't buy Japanese games. Because if that was the case, they would put 0 on. We wouldn't see the spin-offs. We wouldn't see the cheaper, smaller games. We would see none at all. And then you wouldn't see Final Fantasy 16 labeled as a 6-month timed exclusive. Granted, who knows what will happen after that 6 months, but it's just weird. Like, Square Enix is such a weird place, and they're doing the whole NFT and blockchain thing. And by the way, bit of a tangent, we're going to move on to a different NFT topic. Logan probably knows where I'm going with this. So, NFTs, these things that gamers don't want, they're terrible, there's no point of them, nothing in gaming needs NFTs. And, the crypto market crashed like 2 nights ago. Don't know if you saw that, Logan, like billions of dollars lost overnight.
Yeah, it was as if 1,000 crypto bros screamed out and were suddenly silenced. It was, it was a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not invested in all that stuff at all. I don't fully understand it, and two, it looks like a Ponzi scheme, in my opinion. And I saw a video today of a crypto bro crying. I'm not gonna say it was funny. I'm not gonna say it was hilarious. I won't say that at all. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. But yeah, so NFTs, Square Enix looks like they're gonna do them. But anyway. PlayStation about a month and a half ago put out a new thing called PlayStation Stars, and it looks a lot like they want to do their own thing that looks like Microsoft Rewards. And if you've been paying attention for me for a long time, or if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I praise Microsoft Rewards. You can buy games, DLC, hardware even, gift cards for other stuff, and honestly, they're great. Like, if you live in the UK and Brazil, I know they're going to move it to other countries. Like, you can earn about 600 Microsoft Reward points a day, right? So, like, at the minute, I've got about 209,000 Microsoft Reward points, something like that. And I spent 15,000 last month to get Gotham Knights for £50 because I wasn't going to spend £65 on a game. And, it's a good thing. I highly recommend people do this. Depending on what country you live in, you can save up to 25,000 Microsoft Reward points per month. You can pay for your Game Pass. Like, that's free Game Pass right there. Or you can donate it to charity, which is cool. And, PlayStation looks like they were going to do their own thing. Really cool. I see Made by Luke in chat said, I think is 462-day... what do you call it? Streak. I broke a 520-day streak in the UK. That hurt. I lost a lot of points to that. Anyway, we'll move on. So anyway, PlayStation Stars. It looks like it's going to be their type of thing when it comes to Microsoft Rewards. But it turns out you can't buy games. You're going to have digital items which are going to be locked to players. But they said it's not NFTs at all. Now, the fact that a company said the NFT-like thing isn't like an NFT got people worried. Well, anyway, it came out last night that Sony is researching NFTs in gaming and blockchain. And people kind of lost it, and all of a sudden I saw a lot of replies of people defending NFTs, saying, what's so bad about them? Shouldn't this be good? And I have to say, look, let's face it, NFTs, they add nothing to gaming. There's people that don't play games often, or they're not really aware of the industry or anything, that they think NFTs add value. For instance, right, the lead rapper of Linkin Park, by the way, I love Linkin Park. I will always listen to their music. Amazing band. Months ago, posted, wouldn't it be cool if you could buy your favorite skin in Fortnite and then play a game like Call of Duty with that same skin, and then maybe play Assassin's Creed with that same skin that you've only bought once? And to me, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, ever, because games are made on different engines, and each engine has different variants. Because if you have 2 games built on Unreal Engine 5, that doesn't mean they're the same engine. Gamers modify engines. Never mind different publishers making different games. And I just think it's unrealistic for people to think that, oh yeah, Ubisoft, they're going to let people use that free skin that they earned in a different game by a different publisher in their game, just because it's an NFT. I think it's people being ridiculously dumb. And we don't need that in gaming. people complained about microtransactions in video games since, what was it, 2006 or whatever, with the horse armor. And it's gotten worse over the years with microtransactions. And then we have battle passes, season passes. People will complain about all that stuff. And now people are up for NFTs because they think that they could earn money. I don't know, Logan, like, we talk about this a lot, but, like, what's your thought? Because, like, it's a dumb thing to get into.
Yeah, NFTs aren't my thing by any stretch of the imagination. I know some people try to treat them like kind of like trading cards. Like, I'm a big sports guy, and I'm familiar with Top Shot and stuff like that, which is like basically like digital clips. Like you can trade them, buy them, sell them, whatever. Like they're like a highlight clip from a player in a certain game that they had, a marquee game or event they had. And so, like, in sports, they're trying to push it. Gaming, they're trying to push it. It's personally not my thing because I like to tangibly own it, or, like digital rights for, like, the game or whatever. But just the whole artwork thing, like you said, the guy mentioned, like, if you could have a crossover and carry it over to different games and stuff, that would be cool hypothetically, but that's just not going to happen because, engines, licensing, like, all this stuff, it would take unprecedented collaboration between multi-million, multi-billion dollar corporations to get something like that to work, hypothetically, if it could happen. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like a waste of time for these companies to keep researching and trying to get into it when their audience is so clearly like, hey, I am not a fan of this. They've turned the NFT abbreviation to mean something else. I mean, I won't say it here, but like it's it's obvious that people don't want it, and that just trying to push it is going to irritate people. And it is amusing when all of a sudden, when Sony is rumored to be doing it, that people come out of the woodwork to defend it. Take that as what you will, but that is just amusing.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, by the way, I want to apologize to Made by Luke in chat. I misread what he said. He said that he earns 400. You can earn 462 Microsoft reward points in Brazil a day. That's still a lot of points, by the way. Before it went up in the UK, it was about 300 a day. It'll go up for more countries soon, I hope. Anyway, yeah, nobody wants NFTs in gaming. Like, I complain about, battle passes because I don't see the point of the way cosmetics are done in the modern age. Basically, I'm stuck in, multiplayer with the Black Ops days where you bought a season pass and you got the map packs. That's me. That's a topic for another day. But NFTs, they don't add anything. The crypto market crashed over. I put it like this. This is how much companies are abandoning NFTs already. So Ghost Recon Breakpoint released in 2018 or 19. And, they fixed it 6 months later. They put out a patch another few months later. And then about a year ago, they start doing NFTs for items in Breakpoint. And then 2 months later, they abandoned the game. Meaning people had invested money in that game where they can't trade items anymore to other games because they abandoned the project. And it's like, nobody really believes in this stuff. You have these crypto bros that just, they hooking on anything because they want to make money a different way. They think it's, it's not controlled by the government, so they have more control. And the truth is you don't. And the fact that people want to put that in gaming puts me off. I don't want any part of it. I buy my video game, I play it, I finish it, I play something else. That's it. If there's an expansion, I'll probably buy it. But outside of that, like, I don't do microtransactions at all. Any of that stuff. And NFTs is just more bullcrap. I don't need it. None of us need it. And yeah, we'll move on because NFTs are dog crap. Anyway, we'll move on. So, okay. Hogwarts Legacy. We got 40 minutes of gameplay the other day. The game looks amazing, by the way. And, we've never seen Hogwarts to that level before in any form of, like, game ever. And I've played a lot of Harry Potter games over the years. And most of them were terrible, I'll be honest. There was a Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on the original Xbox. Was incredible back in the day. But anyway, this game looks amazing. and it has a full-on character creator. The character creator I saw 2 years ago in the massive leak was nothing like this. They've improved on it. There's more hairstyles and stuff. And when it comes to an RPG like this, you really want to make a character that you want. And I feel like not enough RPGs give you enough, options, for hairstyles, all that stuff, facial features. But yeah, it looks really good. Like, Logan, did you watch the 40-minute feature at all?
I did not watch it, but I've been seeing a lot of Harry Potter stuff post up lately, and the game looks good to me. And it won't be day one for me, but I'm definitely looking forward to picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big RPG. Like, if honestly, I think they missed a big opportunity to release it this year, because that would have been the biggest Christmas game, in my opinion. Millions of people have been wanting a game like that. The combat looks like they're going to take some elements from, let's say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you hold down one of the triggers and you have access to more, actions with the face buttons. A lot of games are doing that now. It's a good way to do multiple actions on a controller. I'm all for it. But yeah, the game looks amazing. And, obviously your main character's fully voiced and that stuff. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people angry about the whole PlayStation-specific content. It's just a store with a quest. That's it. I've played these types of quests that you get with the, should I say, platform exclusive content. It's never worth worrying about, in my opinion. Be it, Call of Duty in the past, or I remember Red Dead Redemption 2. It had some exclusive clothing on PlayStation. Nobody cares. Like, let's face it, nobody cares about that stuff. But yeah, Hogwarts Legacy looks amazing, and that releases in February, where every other game on Earth releases at the same month.
And it's a gaming minefield. It's like obscene how packed early next year is.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be a ton of delays next year. Those games cannot release in the same month. They'll just cannibalize each other. And normally, if games are different genres, I don't really think they affect each other. But the fact that there's like 40 games releasing that month is just bizarre. By the way, I have a theory. I think all those games are aiming for February is so they can get out before the end of the year of the financials. Because a lot of companies, a lot of video game publishers, their financial year ends in March. So to me, it just screams that they want a big bump at the end of the year. So they're just going to try and
Makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it just makes sense because they want to get the games out as fast as possible. Like if they end their financial year with a big up curve, that looks really good. And then they begin the next financial year from March with a downward curve from quite a high angle, and it's like that's the only reason that makes sense. I bet we're going to see more announcements in the next month, especially at the Game Awards, which we'll talk about later. We will see more games announced for February. It's going to be a cluster. Like, I can't see people affording all those games. It's going to be upwards of £2,000 for all those games. Like, it's ridiculous, and a lot of them aren't even releasing in Game Pass, so it's like you don't have the option. But yeah. Be careful with your wallets in February. It's going to be tricky out there. But yeah, and also, I think when it comes to Hogwarts Legacy, that's obviously going to be a 10 plus million seller in my opinion. I think that's going to be huge. Anyway, we'll move on. The Witcher 3 next gen upgrade drops in December 14th. Now, we're going to see gameplay next week, which I don't know why they didn't just wait for the same day, but whatever, they want to get hype. But yeah, the next gen upgrade is going to be free, Xbox Series XS and PlayStation 5. It's suspected that we're going to see ray tracing, because that's what was in the latest PC update. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I still haven't finished the second expansion. The Witcher 3 is a must-play game. It's one of the 10 out of 10 games, in my opinion. I love that game. You've obviously played it, right, Logan?
Oh yeah, Witcher 2 and 3, especially 3 are masterpieces. They're brilliant, iconic, help shape modern RPGs in the way that Skyrim did. They're phenomenal games, and I can't wait to play it Series X, S enhanced with upgrades and probably some modern accessibility features. And who knows, maybe they'll put a Liam Hemsworth skin in for Geralt so we can match the show now.
By the way, on about the whole Witcher show, the blowback off that, oof, talk about a downgrade, because you have Superman, Henry Cavill. It was in Fallout. Not Fallout. It was in Mission Impossible Fallout as the bad guy. He's a well-known actor. People know who Liam Hemsworth is. But Logan, could you name one film that Liam Hemsworth has starred in?
He was in the Hunger Games films. He was in I think Cut Bank, which was like some kind of like rural bank heist film. There was what is it? There's a film on Netflix where he and what's his name? It's an action film where he's a mercenary and he goes to like South America on this big heist to steal from this drug cartel. But besides that, I can't really name too many.
So yeah, downgrade. Like, I know he was in Independence Day Resurgence, and I'm not going to talk about my opinion with that film because that was not good at all.
Not
But
the first one.
yeah, I mean the first one's amazing. Like, I've watched it probably like well over 200 times, but like Independence Day Resurgence, oh, like not good, not good at all. Don't know what the hell Roland Emmerich was thinking when he made that, but yeah, bit of a downgrade. And apparently we're going to see some movie related, or I should say Netflix series related stuff in the upgrade. So who knows? Maybe we have a Henry Cavill skin or something. I don't think he'll have voiced the whole game like Batista did with Gears. That was a really cool thing we got, by the way. But yeah, I love The Witcher 3. We got a Xbox One X upgrade last generation where you have a 4K mode and a 60 FPS mode. I think that that is a must-play game. Assassin's Creed basically changed because of that game. It went from this stealth assassination game to an RPG, and very influenced by The Witcher. And yeah, made by Luke in chat said he's never played The Witcher. The Witcher 3 is incredible. Like, even if you haven't played The Witcher 2, it's very accessible. It basically gives you the backstory. Although I do love The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. That is an incredible 360 game. It's also on PC and stuff. But yeah, The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece. Like, I can't say enough good things about it. When I say there's 3 10 out of 10 games, that's Mass Effect 2, The Witcher 3, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Those are the 3 10 out of 10s. And The Witcher 3 just, it changed my perception on RPGs because it's an open world RPG that has no bloat at all. Like, a lot of open world RPGs rely on repetitive quests and stuff, but the game isn't like that. The Witcher 3 is very entertaining throughout. The quests are all different. The gameplay is amazing. The visuals, the soundtrack. Honestly, like, it's probably one of the best. It is one of the best games ever made. And the fact that we're getting a free next-gen upgrade to a 7-year-old game, it just goes to show, CD Projekt Red got a lot of pushback from Cyberpunk. That released in an awful fashion. And, whether they deserved the hate or not, they lost all of their goodwill. We could all see that. Like, CD Projekt Red went from being the most beloved developer in the industry to arguably one of the most hated. And then they fixed Cyberpunk 2077. The anime came out, Edgerunners, and it made Cyberpunk even more popular to the point where it sold over 20 million copies. And they're going to put out a free next-gen upgrade. And then they're going to put out a remake of the first game in the future, which is going to be incredible. That's going to be Unreal Engine 5. And I don't know, like, it's a good time for CD Projekt Red. They're going to be making a new Witcher trilogy in Unreal Engine 5. There's going to be 2 separate Witcher games made by external developers, which that should be interesting because that could be pretty much any genre. And they're working on, a Cyberpunk sequel as well as the Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, which is going to be the expansion to Cyberpunk 2077. It's a good time to be a Cyberpunk fan and a Witcher fan, and more importantly, CD Projekt Red fan, because they're putting out the goods. The next 6 months for them is going to be wild. Logan, like, you've played Cyberpunk, right? Are you looking forward to the next Cyberpunk expansion and all their new games they're coming out with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to just about anything CD Red puts out. Before the, Cyberpunk debacle of a launch, like, if their seal was on it, they were one of those companies, like, it was like the old school Nintendo Golden Seal of approval. Like if they made it, you knew it was going to be amazing and it was going to be top notch and have everything and more that you could possibly want. And now that they've bounced back from Cyberpunk's launch, and they've done so well with everything, the show, Witcher. I can't wait for the expansion and the future games in the series and spin-offs they're working on. It's a great time.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a fan of their games, and like they just a beloved developer. Now that we are now into the show again, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Want to grow the channel, the show, and all that stuff. And I've got a lot of cool things planned. Anyway, and super chats alive and all that crap. Anyway. But yeah, CD Projekt Red, can't wait for their new stuff. And if you've never played The Witcher 3, you're going to be getting the best console version ever. And yeah, I could honestly see them putting out a Witcher update for like whenever a Switch 2 comes out, because they do cool stuff like that. I realized back in 2012 how good CD Projekt were when it comes to how much they care about fans and like the usability and just like the experience of their games. So when The Witcher 2 came to Xbox 360, by the way, at the time, I wanted to play it on PC, but my laptop at the time couldn't play it. They announced it for Xbox 360. The trailer is incredible. It's arguably one of the best looking games on the 360. And it came out, I bought it physically. It came in one of those fancy cardboard sleeves you see in a lot of games, but like it came with a thank you note for the game, just for purchasing it. It came with a guide, like literally a game guide for the quests, which you don't see ever. And it was a full-coloured manual, full-coloured pages and all that stuff. I think it was like 50 pages long. It came with a map, a soundtrack, stickers, and it was like a £30 game. And that was in 2012. And they just put all that stuff in the box without even really advertising it. And now you don't really see anything like that. In the past few games that I have had with thank you notes were made by CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk and The Witcher 3. And yeah, I think it's a good time for them. I see the developers are a lot happier on social media now because they got a lot of hate with Cyberpunk 2077's launch. Yeah, but yeah, I'm a fan of them. I highly recommend people play the games. I'm honestly surprised that Cyberpunk isn't in Game Pass yet, but I'm guessing they're probably going to be charging a lot because that's an RPG that's like in the top 10 of the store all the time now. And they can get away with that because, again, it's a beloved RPG now. Anyway, we'll move on. This has been a topic. Logan, have you played God of War Ragnarok yet? And Logan's disappeared. Logan, I think you muted.
Can you hear? Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Have you played?
Sorry, I hit a button on my mic. I loved the first God of War, the reboot, and the original ones. I have not played Ragnarok yet, but I figure I'm gonna like it if it's anything like the previous one. But no, I haven't pigeonholed it as a Game of the Year winner or anything like that because I haven't played it yet.
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is because I'm seeing a very common thing in Logan's silence says it all. I think there's a lot of people in my feed that have played it, like they're enjoying it and stuff. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's reminding me of an issue I've seen in other games, is that the main complaint is that the game holds your hand. And I'm seeing all these clips and memes where basically you're trying to solve a puzzle, and it could be something as simple as, you have to pull the handle to open this door, and the game will explain it to you. And honestly, I hate it when games handhold. I can't stand it. And, the clips I'm seeing, it looks really annoying. And I think people's, arguments against the game and how it's not this 10 out of 10 experience. And by the way, every time I see someone say it's not a 10 out of 10 game, they get attacked. Like, since when is a 9 out of 10 game or an 8 out of 10 game bad? Like,
trash.
Yeah, like, if a game isn't a 10 out of 10, and you say it's not the 10 out of 10 people are saying, people automatically assume that you're saying the game's trash. And that is bizarre. Most of my favorite games of all time are like 9s and 8s. Like I think people to put too much like hype. Like God of War Ragnarok is basically just a sequel, right? It's a sequel. You do more of the same crap. that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But the game's doing this hand-holding thing, and like I've seen clips of like Kratos like needs to open a door and he has to make a crane swing around, and the game explains to how you make this crane swing around when it's blatantly obvious. And games do this thing called visual cues. I should say, if they design well, they give you visual cues that basically tell you what to do without actually telling you. So I'm bringing this up because Somerville came out last night. This is a new game by former developers of Limbo and Inside. And I must say, if you want an alien invasion story, which we don't actually see much in video games, play this game. I almost jumped out of my chair at one point playing it last night.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, like when it happens, you don't expect it. I'll just put it that way. But like, there's a very easy puzzle early on in the game that does visual cues. So basically, this isn't a spoiler, by the way. In Somerville, you can play it now in Xbox Game Pass. You basically walk around and you don't know what to do, and then the dog starts barking, and then grabs its bowl, and then basically the dog walks around with the bowl in its mouth, telling you that it wants food. So you go to where the food is, you pick it up, take it to the dog. Very simple puzzle, right? Very simple visual cue, because you see the dog with the bowl, you know he wants feeding. Well, that's the problem with a lot of big AAA games now, is that they don't do that. They either give you big outlines of things you need to climb, or they literally describe it to you. Like some of the Tomb Raider games really described puzzles to you. I know that a Plague Tale Requiem, there's an option for you to turn those cues off and on, which is really cool. But like too many games now handhold people all the time. And when I was playing Somerville last night, I was just thinking how refreshing it was, because even though I was walking around not knowing what to do, as soon as that dog started barking with its bowl, you knew. Such a simple thing. And I think, too many people, like now, I'll say a lot of people now are getting sick of it. Like, Logan, you must have noticed, like, a lot of games handhold and tell you what to do, when to do, all the time now.
Yeah, it's definitely become a very noticeable trend. Like there's a game I was playing the other day. I can't remember which one, but I was walking around and I was taking my sweet time looking, like the collectionist I am in gaming, like making sure I looked at every nook and cranny and went down every hallway and this to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then like the companion character starts chirping at me about it. It's like, hey, TikTok, TikTok, we gotta go, or we need to go talk to this person, or do this, or do that, and then they'd remind you every bit, and I'm like, dude, I'm busy, I'm looking, and then, but they wouldn't stop chirping, and like, I think a good compromise, like you said, is the Requiem thing, where you can turn it on or off, or like put it in accessibility features, like have it to where I want a very streamlined, I just want the story, minimal gameplay, just help me get through this thing pretty streamlined. And they actively help you get it done. You get the game done, you enjoy the story, yay. Or just turn it off and be like, you know what? I want to just figure it out, even if I'm spending 2 hours on this puzzle, and have that experience. Like, there's got to be a way that they can turn it on and off, because it does get annoying if someone's constantly chirping and distracting you while you're trying to figure it out or do something.
Yeah, I mean, like Red Dead Redemption 2 does this really well, where you're told to go into a house to search for money, and it's probably hid somewhere dark, right? And the only place dark in the room is a chimney, right? And like such a simple thing as a visual cue, the only dark area being this chimney. And I don't know, like I've gotten really annoyed to the point where like I don't know why developers assume that we are dumb. And I've noticed like gamers don't like puzzle games, right? Normally if I post backwards compatible footage at 4K or 60, it normally gets people's attention. But I noticed when I posted Portal gameplay in the past, people don't really care. Because puzzle games, most people don't like them in the niche. But the problem is...
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, I like puzzle games. Like, Portal 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I highly recommend people play that. But, yeah, it's weird because, like, the puzzles we see in action-adventure games, or, like, Somerville, like I just mentioned, are very simplistic. But some games just need to tell you. Like, I've seen clips of Horizon Forbidden West where Aloy tells you how to solve the puzzle before you get there. Like, that doesn't respect you as a player, in my opinion. And a lot of games do this now. A lot. And I'm sick of it. They need to have an option to turn it off from the beginning. Or, like, have it off by default. Because you don't need tips all the time. And when it comes to, like, accessibility and, difficulty, we have options in general. Like, why can't tips be in, maybe play it on hard if you don't want, like, any tips at all, or just more options. I just feel like it's very lazy video game development where they try and force what you need to do without letting you explore. I don't know. But yeah, it's just playing Somerville last night where the dog was barking with the ball, and I was like, that's really well done. Like, it's such a small thing. Anyway, people play that. That's a really good game. If you want alien invasion story, if anything, it reminded me a lot of Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds, which I love that film. Like, you've probably seen that, right, Logan?
Great film.
Yeah, it has a lot in common with that. But yeah, Somerville, go play it. And I'd be interested if anyone in chat that's played God of War, like, let me know if, like, the hand-holding, does it really get annoying? Because I'm sick of it. Like, again, Tomb Raider and other games have really done that in the past, and it's just annoying. Anyway, we'll move on. So, Project Keystone has been around for a while now. There's been rumours for years. Phil Spencer puts a shelf picture out a few weeks ago, and it got people going wild about it, and it turns out it was a cancelled prototype. And then last week, Microsoft basically came out in some interviews and said that, the project got shelves. And it came out today, why? And it turns out it's not cheap enough. And all honesty, I think that's fair, because the problem is that when you have a streaming box where the main focus of it is its selling point being the price, if it's over $100 or £100, in my opinion, it's not going to sell. Because if you have this tiny little streaming box with a controller that's $150, and then you have a Xbox Series S that's $250, what's the point of getting the streaming box? So I think they're going to wait till they can get the 4K streaming tech down more, and honestly get out a box that costs less than $100 with a controller. Because Apple TV took off, the Amazon Fire TV and all that stuff took off, and it's like the less than $100, unless you get the Apple one, but Apple overcharges for everything anyway. Even though I still get the iPhones. But yeah, Logan, what's your thoughts on this? Because I think them waiting till it's less than $100 is probably the reason why, even though they said price is the reason.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot of 99 to 129, which is what Phil said today on The Verge, is probably what they're waiting on. Because if you're gonna make a device that's meant to be an even cheaper alternative to Series S, you want a decent enough gap between them price wise to make it worth it, instead of going, okay, this is only a smidge more. Get an actual console versus just a streaming stick that comes with a controller. Like, if it were me, I would just go for the console, but I know some people would go for the streaming stick anyway. But the fact that they decided to pivot for Samsung TV partnerships and other partnerships they're doing and pursuing at the moment makes sense until they can nail down the science and price and get it out there to where they'll have the three alternative, systems, plural, to choose from: the Keystone little stick, the Series S, and the Series X. To me, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you have a choice between a streaming box and a Series S, you obviously go for the Series S, because there's games on that thing that you can play at 120 frames. There's 4K games on the thing. You have all the BC stuff. Yeah, you're right. It would make the whole streaming stick completely pointless. As someone that used to use xCloud every day, the tech's cool. It works. But when the resolution drops, you notice. And I think they want to get it so they can get 4K streaming for video games. Again, I've said in the past, I think they will have it down by 2024, 2025. 4K gaming at 60 FPS. They have the hardware. They just need to get the streaming tech down. And it's proven already that it does work. It just needs to get better. In the streaming space, there isn't a lot of like avenues for that stuff. You have Amazon's Luna, which is still a thing. I don't see anyone talking about it. Stadia's pretty much gone now. It ends in, I think it's January or February. But yeah, there is a place for streaming, and it will never replace consoles. Whenever streaming gets brought up, I always see some people concerned where Xbox is going to become an app. Like, I wouldn't worry. Like, that's not going to be a thing. You know, I honestly believe, and anyone can clip this, I think we have one more generation where we have discs. That's me. I think we have one more generation where we have discs, and then we still have...
Ooh, that's spicy.
Yeah, I know some people don't like the thought of physical media being brought up, but just given how the internet is in a lot of places, like, it makes no sense to have 100% digital for the next generation. And I think the next generation kicks off in 2027. 2027, in my opinion. But yeah, that's just my thought on the whole thing. I think that it would have been a really cool thing for people to buy at Christmas, because, you know, it's that sort of price where you'd be like, okay, it could be a stocking filler type thing, or it could be something you have in an alternate room, and kind of perfect for travel if you think about it. But yeah, if people want a cheap Xbox, right now you have a Series S. And there's a lot of deals going on right now in a lot of countries with the whole Amazon stuff, and in some countries you can actually get a free controller with an Xbox Series S, so highly recommend people go for that stuff. Again, Amazon have a lot of cool deals, and I know in the UK, Game have some deals as well when it comes to the Xbox Series S. Anyway, okay, so Pentiment reviews came out yesterday, and surprised a lot of people, because, look, as much as I love Obsidian, I've never disliked any of their games, ever. I've enjoyed every single Obsidian game for as long as I've been playing their... I've been playing their games since the early 2000s. I've never not enjoyed their games. So when it came to Pentiment, I'm like, okay, they're making this smaller scale game that's also an RPG. It's got this sort of old style, like, comic vibe to it. And I love the art in Pentiment. I didn't think it was going to review well just because it's not the cinematic game. I think too many... I honestly think if a game isn't a cinematic game, or if it's a little 2-bit indie, it doesn't get reviewed well. But people are coming out. IGN gave it a 10. It's gotten 5s out of 5s, 10s out of 10s, 9s out of 10s. In the one outlier, GameStop, or just a GameSpot, gave it a 6. Which, okay, there's always one outlier. It's either Destructoid or GameSpot. But yeah, the reviews are extremely positive. Logan, I know it hasn't been live for a lot of hours yet. Have you played it yet?
I have not played it, but I'm definitely looking forward to jumping in this week. I'm a big history buff, and the whole, 1500s time period and the murder mystery and the parchment kind of style and graphics and music being scored for it and adapted, and just the whole vibe of it is just awesome. It scratches an itch. It's like there's nothing else like it out there. And I think that's why it reviewed so well. It's like, in many of the reviews I've seen, people are like, you know what? They had the balls to do something different, and they went out and did it, and boy, they nailed it. And this is awesome, and I appreciate it. And people get tired of sameness all the time. Like, and to clarify, there's a difference between sameness as in, like, this is an ongoing franchise, you know what to expect and the type of gameplay, yada, yada, yada. But this isn't just like a reskin of an FPS or something. Like, this is a brand new idea, and it's really, really resonating with people. And given Obsidian's, history, I've never played a game of theirs I didn't like. Even their, quote, worst game, Alpha Protocol, was fun. Like, I enjoyed it. It was an espionage RPG. Still hoping, fingers crossed, it could be PC someday. Jason, if you're listening, But it's just like Coder 2, the Outer Worlds games that they're making, Avowed, Dungeon Siege 3, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. Like, they don't have any misses. Like, if it's an Obsidian game, you're going to have a good time. So, I'm stoked for it.
Yeah, didn't they also make one of the South Park games?
Yeah, Stick of Truth. That was another hilarious game. Their writing and RPG creation is, like, honestly, like, in my opinion, this might sound blasphemous to some, but in my opinion, they've kind of surpassed Bethesda in a way, at least of recent, and being the preeminent RPG Western studio.
Honestly, I have to agree because like I loved Fallout 3. Like it's one of my favorite games of all time. But like Fallout 4, I couldn't get into it just because if you have a little tiny bit of like, OCD, like having the way they had the crafting system just completely broke me as a person. The fact that they made every item in that game valuable just broke me because I had to hoard everything, literally everything. I will give that another go when they come out with the next gen upgrade. But like, yeah, no, I think Obsidian is better. They are. A lot of people praise New Vegas. Personally, I prefer Fallout 3 just because of its setting. But like a lot of people love New Vegas over 3, and
I
they
do.
yeah,
I
and
like it.
like a lot of people like New Vegas over 3. And plus, I just didn't like the orange tone. Like I was like, why is everything so orange? But like I'm in the minority when it comes to that. A lot of people love Obsidian games. They came out with KOTOR 2, an espionage RPG during the Xbox 360 generation. Like nobody expected that. They were developing multiple Alien RPGs at one point, and they have range. But when Project Pentiment was first leaked by Jez Corden from Windows Central, I automatically thought it was a first-person game, just because that's what I'm used to from them. So when I first saw the art style at the E3 showcase thing, I was kind of like taken back. I was like, huh, it's not what I expected. And honestly, from all the gameplay trailers I've seen and just the tone they're going for, it's kind of like historic, but they're going for a little bit of humor at the same time. It has that Microsoft Reader, by the way, so if you don't want to read all the text, it's got the Microsoft Reader software built into the game, which is kind of strange. I've never seen that in a video game before. It's got very stylized text, so depending on who you're speaking to and what their education level is, will change the font type, which is quite original. I can't wait to get back to it, but yeah, like it's a very original RPG, which we don't see enough of. People complain about samey games all the time, like you were saying, and it's original. Like we've never seen an RPG like this, and I think, yeah, like you said, like that's why IGN and all these other places have gave it high scores. It is a bit of a shame that we have certain crowds bash the game because it's looking like an indie game. And honestly, I'll take 10 Pentiments over another over-the-shoulder action-adventure game because I've played enough of them. I like the individuality and the freshness of indie games. Like, look, Vampire Survivors. It looks like it came out in 1990, but I don't care. It's addictive. Somerville, we haven't had an alien invasion story told like this ever. Like, I can't think of a realistic, I'm doing air quotes, realistic alien invasion story told in a video game. You either have like
Original Prey, maybe.
yeah, like original Prey, but other than that, like you normally have like a plasma cannon or anything. And like in this, you're running for your life with your family, and I don't know, like Pentiment, it's refreshing. And I'll get back to it after the show, but yeah, I highly recommend people download it. Obviously in Game Pass, I think it's just a testament to like Obsidian don't miss, and arguably one of the best pickups for Microsoft Game Studios. Because they do not miss, and they're going to be coming out with Avowed, rumored to be next year. That wouldn't surprise me, by the way. And yeah, they can make such good games with small teams. They made, oh my god, I forgot the name. Grounded. They made Grounded with like 20 people. They made
Insane.
this. Yeah, they made this was probably about the same, I think, or less. And it's like they can make really cool games with small teams, and I think that's the biggest strength for Microsoft at the minute, is that a lot of their studios right now can make multiple games at the same time, meaning you're going to have sometimes multiple releases by the same studio in the same year, some big games, some small, but I think that's the biggest advantage, because remember when Ubisoft were coming out with small interesting games as well, like Valiant Hearts, like people loved that
Hell
game.
of Light.
Yeah, and people loved those games. And it was refreshing because you had this AAA big budget developer making indie style projects, but those indie style projects reviewed well, people loved them, people still want sequels, and I think there's a place for that. I think, as much as I've said in the past, I think Microsoft do need maybe a few more third person games. But I would like to see Sony, and Nintendo, like experiment with some smaller games, because again, a game like Pentiment, you're not getting from a AAA developer on the AAA level, but you're getting that, with a smaller budget and a more passion project style team. And I'll take that over, a big budget game, or at least 10 big budget games. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, Pentiment, download it now. It's available. It's a small file as well. I think it's like 4 gigabytes. It's fairly small. But yeah. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So, the EU Commission is fairly corrupt. Most people know this. All the money funded into the EU Commission, it goes into people's pockets. That's literally the case. Anyway, so someone from the EU Commission put out a post last week saying that, Call of Duty should be available on, other platforms, including his PlayStation. Now, he was caught in 4K, 500K with the telescope. Like, I've never seen anyone get caught in 4K so bad. And it turns out he's worked in, the commission in the past with, competitiveness and stuff. And honestly, he's kind of the right age where, let's face it, he probably got a PlayStation as a teenager and grown up with it. Like, I've put this out in the past, like, I was a PlayStation kid, and then I became an Xbox guy, right? Well, this EU Commission guy blatantly spilled the beans. He had to backtrack and said he's not involved in the thing, but if he wasn't involved, why did he even talk about it? And that's probably gave Microsoft a lot of leverage because it made them look extremely biased. And in a case like this, like Microsoft and the ABK deal, looking biased can pretty much put the whole thing in Microsoft's favor. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because it popped off.
Yeah, it was an ill-advised tweet. Let's put it that way. He doing some digging and watching everyone who's interested in this topic needs to watch Hogue Law's video on it, because he goes deep down the rabbit hole about this and offers all his takes on all the stuff about it. Fantastic video. Basically, this guy, just for background information, for 17 years he worked as spokesperson for the European Union competition committee. And he was involved for 17 years. He had worked in that role among other roles in the competition committee, to where he was directly involved in this type of stuff. And within the last 5-6 months, he had shifted to a different role. But for somebody that's been tied in for a decade plus, and has now shifted to a new role, but tweets that the committee is wanting to accomplish this, and making it sound like an official capacity tweet, then saying my PlayStation, making it sound like it's already been prejudged to where, look, this is what we're doing, or this is what they're gonna do. That looks incredibly bad. I don't know. You can't spin that positively. And no amount of tweeting, oh, well, this is just my view, LOL, I have it in my profile, so you have nothing to worry about here. Move along. These aren't the droids you're looking for. It's like, buddy, no, that's not how this works. I mean, it's like you see people get in trouble all the time with their job or with their agency, whatever, because they put their foot in their mouth and they say something they shouldn't have said online. And even if it's your personal profile, the fact that you are a representative of, this sports team or this franchise or this agency, and it may be your personal opinion, but personal opinion shapes how things get moved on and acted upon. And the fact that all this happens, it's mind-bogglingly a foot in the mouth moment. And this absolutely gives Microsoft leverage. Point blank, if this thing were to get nasty and go to court, or, they start threatening all kinds of crazy concessions, Microsoft can go, hey, you remember that time so-and-so said this, and how that looked, and how may or may not have spilled some stuff about things looking and being done already. pre-notions. Yeah, we're gonna bring that up, and maybe that gives them an easier path. But regardless, it's a terrible, terrible look for the EU, and everybody's talking about it, and it's a massive headache, and it's better not to tweet sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the EU looking corrupt isn't new. like, as someone that lives in the UK, it's like if I hear something sounding dodgy, it's like it's probably true. But yeah, like what he tweeted was bad. Like that's gonna look really negative if it ever does go to court. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone finds his trophy list soon, because like he's obviously concerned about his PlayStation. And here's the thing, right? As someone that uses an iPhone every day, there's no way autocorrect did that at all. No chance. Autocorrect didn't do that. He typed my PlayStation. But yeah, it's very corrupt, and it will get sorted. Here's the thing: the concessions they want is ridiculous. You know, the fact that we got $70 games now, £70 games even, and they want to keep Call of Duty off the subscription service when you'd actually be playing the game for less, like, is bizarre. It's bizarre on every level, because isn't that being anti-competitive? Like, isn't it anti-competitive that Sony are wanting these concessions? Like, and here's the thing. Like I've said in the past, Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Xbox have all been number one at some point in the United Kingdom. At some point, that's been the case. But for some reason, they seem very specific about wanting to keep Sony's place in the UK, which, like, it just looks really weird. And I know Phil Spencer came out today and said, like, the deal's more about Candy Crush. Honestly, I think he's saving face, because, like, look, I think Phil Spencer's done a lot for the Xbox and gaming in general, but, like, I honestly don't understand the Candy Crush thing. Maybe it's because I don't play mobile games like that. Maybe I have no idea. But, like, the deal to me is blatantly about Activision and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. Like, World of Warcraft alone on consoles makes sense. They have an update coming out for action gameplay. They have an update coming to World of Warcraft for third-person over-the-shoulder view and controller support on PC. Well, guess what console needs? Controller support. And considering you can get World of Warcraft running on an old laptop, doesn't the console make the most sense next? I don't know. But, like, Call of Duty's, like, huge. And, oh, by the way, a little bit of a tangent. You know how Call of Duty has a huge file size? So if you want to play Warzone, you have to download Modern Warfare 2019. It turns
They're
out,
garbage.
yeah, it's terrible. Like, it's like a 250 gigabyte file or something right now. So here's some bad news, which I just wrote down. It turns out Activision didn't learn anything. So when you download Warzone 2 on the 18th, you also have to download Modern Warfare's client. Modern Warfare 2's client. Meaning, rather than 40 gigabytes, it's going to be over 115.
I had one job.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? There's a lot of people that just play Warzone and not regular Call of Duty. So why, like, them tying the file to the Modern Warfare 2 client is stupid. Like, I bet there's a lot of people in chat right now that know what I'm talking about. Like, downloading Warzone back in the day when it came out was such a pain, because you had to delete. And look, let's face it, games are huge now. But it's going to get to the point where your hard drive can only have Call of Duty on it and maybe one other game. like, hell, I have to download and delete Flight Simulator, like, every month, because that is a huge game. Obviously, it's like Earth. But yeah, Call of Duty, they're tying the client to Modern Warzone. I should say Warzone client to Modern Warfare 2 again. Awful move. Awful move. Anyway, back to the whole Phil Spencer thing. It's blatantly about COD. Like, maybe, is anyone chat? Let me know. Is Candy Crush still that big?
Yes.
Because, like, I never see anyone playing it. Like, back when it was huge, I used to see people on mobile play it all the time, even in the pub or out. But, like, I never see anyone play it. But that's just
depends on what circles you run in. But, like, soccer moms, old grandmas, like, It's like so many people play Candy Crush and these mobile games. They're highly addictive. They're easy to jump into. You can buy access to things. It's easy to get hooked on them, and they just if you look at the numbers behind Candy Crush alone, it is just absolutely otherworldly obscene how much money that one game makes over anything else. Like it makes COD like not the juggernaut it is. It's just ludicrous. So obviously COD is what most mainstream or most hardcore gamers like think of like okay, Call of Duty is like the crown jewel of this thing. But mobile gets to more people than even COD does. And the fact that you get COD and all these other things combined with the mobile platform that they've been needing an in on, it just makes the deal like for itself. They needed PC support to boost PC Game Pass. Blizzard has that in spades. Plus, you can bring some old franchises back and put them on Xbox as well. Activision has beloved old IP that are just sitting in storage. Want to bring those back. Oh, by the way, they have the consistent top five selling franchise like of the last decade plus on console. Awesome. Oh, and they have this huge mobile thing, which makes more money than just it's like printing money. So I understand why he shifts the focus to Candy Crush and say it's about that. I think it is partly a little to shift attention away from Call of Duty so much, but I don't think that's just lip service. It really does make just bukus of money.
Yeah, I think made by Luke in chat has actually a really good point. He wrote, "I honestly think Sony is only complaining a lot so it can buy a lot of studios without anyone saying anything about it next year." That's a good point because over the past 6 months they've bought like several studios. They bought Housemarque, as of recently. They bought Nixus, and like in the past year since the Activision deal was announced in January, they've bought about 6 studios. So that's a good point. Nobody's bringing it up. They bought Bungie, and nobody bats an eye at all. And yet, obviously, Activision is a way bigger deal than all those studios put together because they're a publisher and they get Call of Duty out there. But like, not once Sony has had to answer to any regulatory board at all. That's a bit weird. And all eyes have been on Microsoft. Although I will say this: when the whole thing goes through, I really hope Microsoft keeps away from publishers because we don't need this for another year. Like, let's be honest. it's a bit tiring. Like this thing might go till March, and maybe then we'll be done. But like I hope they keep away from publishers. And by the way, I think it's stupid. And bear in mind, I live in the UK. I think it's stupid that an American company has to answer to the UK regulatory board and Europe about them purchasing another American company.
I agree.
Like that's stupid. I don't understand that. Like Sony, they don't have to answer to anyone because they're a Japanese company, even though their headquarters is now in the US. But they can buy anyone. But like, I don't understand the problem of an American company buying an American company. That just it's stupid. The UK has no bloody say. Just like how the US would have no say in a British company buying another British company. It makes no sense. I don't get it. I'll have to read up on it because it's just stupid. It's like when Disney bought Fox and you had all these other countries like had their say. It's like at the time I was wondering like it's not your business. It's a bit weird. Hopefully all that stuff will come to an end soon because let's face it, it's getting long in the tooth. Anyway, we'll move on to the next topic. So now I'll put Fallout 5 in the title because Fallout is obviously years away. And I know that Obsidian, now being under Microsoft as well as Bethesda, I honestly think like if it wasn't for Obsidian, Fallout 5 would be something we will see in 2032. I'm not even kidding. Because like, let's face it, The Elder Scrolls 6 is years away. Years. Like, they said that like it's in pre-production. and they've posted some like videos of them making rocks and stuff in the new engine. But outside of that, they've not really made much, and that game is years away. The majority of the team is working on Starfield. I honestly believe that we will see Fallout sooner rather than later because Obsidian will make it. They've proven they can make games with small teams. And even though Fallout is a very big project, as they are, huge games, but like if you look at something like The Outer Worlds, that's a smaller scale RPG. It's not open world, it's semi-open world. But like if you look at what they did with that game, I honestly think they could make a Fallout game in a shorter time span than what we'll see from Bethesda. And considering they've said in the past, like, look, they all under the same umbrella now, they could make Fallout. So I don't know, Logan, is it a bit of a tinfoil hat thing, or do you think that we will actually see Fallout 5 by Obsidian rather than Bethesda?
I don't know if Fallout quote 5 would be by Obsidian, but I do think Obsidian will make another Fallout game. Like whether it's New Vegas 2 or a different game in the Fallout universe or maybe Fallout 5. I do think Obsidian will make one. And I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of a tinfoil thing, but it wouldn't shock me if Xbox, were to make a studio specifically for Fallout under the Bethesda umbrella, to where they can actually get the ball rolling and not have to wait, till 2045 to finally finish Elder Scrolls 6 and then all their other games they've got going, and then or make a studio to handle remasters and remakes of older titles in the Xbox library and the Bethesda and Activision library once they come aboard. And then after that comes out, then a few years later a new Fallout game comes out. But I think we will see Fallout sooner than later is my hunch personally.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention that, I think New Vegas 2 or Fallout, parentheses, something else. Yeah, like, but I honestly believe the next time we'll see a new Fallout game will be by Obsidian. And like you're saying, the whole remaster slash, remake studio, they need that. With the studios they've got and the games they have, like, Obsidian is such a, like, I should say Microsoft Game Studios, they have so many studios making, like, games at the minute. Surely they would have the people that would fill a team to do that stuff, because they could even work with the BC team that helps upgrade stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about Microsoft Game Studios, that they have like so much variety. They can pretty much do anything. They can surprise us. Like, we don't even know what In Exile's doing. That could be anything. They have hinted it's a first-person game with sci-fi elements, but outside that, we don't know. Also, Logan, I know you've said in the past you want a next-gen upgrade for Wasteland 3, because I was shocked when you told me that. I thought it already happened.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, all these other first-party games, even We Happy Few got a next-gen upgrade. But Wasteland 3, this critically acclaimed, modern tactical masterclass of an RPG, doesn't have a Series XS upgrade. I mean, that's kind of odd to me. I mean, it surely wouldn't take that many resources from Project Cobalt to do, right?
Yeah, that seems like a weird one. And plus, like, I'm sure they have the manpower for that kind of stuff. But yeah, when you mentioned that to us, I was shocked because, like you said, We Happy Few, next gen upgrade. Everything has a next gen upgrade. But Wasteland 3, the critically acclaimed game, which people were raving on about, bit shocking. Hopefully they'll fix that. I mean, they've surprised us in the past. Anyway, before I move into the final topics, if you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. All that stuff, it helps. Anyway, so the Game Awards is just around the corner, and let's face it, a lot of us watch for the trailers. I know I do. When it comes to Game Awards ceremonies, I mainly pay attention to the BAFTA Game Awards, because that is a black tie event where there's no trailers, it's a purely Game Awards. And let's face it, the Game Awards is just a trailer-filled show padded out with awards. Let's face it. But that being said, I'm going to watch it. And we've seen some cool games announced in the past. The Xbox Series X was revealed at the Game Awards in 2019, which feels like forever ago. Perfect Dark was revealed at the Game Awards last year, I believe. But yeah, Perfect Dark. It's going to be a while away. But Microsoft, they are surprising people with game announcements and that stuff. And there's obviously never been leaks when it comes to these games announced. Well, I honestly think we could see some, announcements. I think, honestly, I'm putting this out there. I think we will see a release date for Avowed and Hellblade 2. Maybe one new announcement. But when it comes to Xbox Game Studios, I think that's it. There's been rumors for the past 6 months that Avowed is coming next year. I think the Game Awards just makes the most sense with the amount of eyes on it. What do you think, Logan?
I agree. I think if I were to guess three games that would appear, I would say Hellblade 2 because it is always at the Game Awards, it seems like, until it actually releases. I think Hellblade 2 will be there. I think there's a good chance Avowed will be there and that it releases next year. And then I'm going to throw in Project Cobalt as a wild card for a hidden Xbox title that gets a surprise reveal at the Game Awards.
That's a good shout. I'd probably say that because they've been quiet for a while, like in Exile. But yeah, those are pretty much our predictions for what we'll see. But I want to talk about the snubbing, or what I like to call Jeff Keighley and the Snubbosaurus Rex, because the Game Awards nominees kind of surprised me. Actually, no, they didn't. There's a lot of snubbing going on. So bear in mind, the highly rated Forza Horizon 5 wasn't allowed to be included in last year's awards because it missed the date, right? Which I believe it launched on the 5th of November. Well, God of War, that's allowed to be nominated this year. Bit convenient. Anyway, so the Game of the Year nominees are A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, I obviously voted Elden Ring. I'll put that out there. I think that deserves to win Game of the Year. I still have to make my way through A Plague Tale Requiem, but as of now, it's Elden Ring. What do you think, Logan?
As of right now, Elden Ring would be my winner, hands down, no questions asked. There have been some other games I've played so far, and this could be a topic for later, but that have really surprised me that I'd put in my Game of the Year list. But so far, it's just like Elden Ring, just this cultural zeitgeist that happened with it, the amount of like storytelling without too much actual hand holding storytelling, just the combat, the world, the exploration, the visuals, it was just a masterclass game. And to me, there hasn't been anything that has hit that same note that Elden Ring has. There have been some really, really good games this year that I think are worthy of consideration for a Game of the Year type award. But me, that one is cream of the crop, top game. And for as far as the nominations for his award show, I'm fine with the list. There are two that to me, Stray is a little odd, but I get it. They usually include a token indie. Like I like indie games, and I think they deserve to be awarded. But it almost feels like they just pick one out of a hat sometimes. Like, all right, this is the indie we're just gonna put in here this year, instead of like deliberately sit down and narrow it down. Like to me, it didn't seem like Stray set the world on fire like a Vampire Survivors has, or a an As Dusk Falls, like something like revolutionary or just really punching. But hey, it's a cute cat with a backpack. I mean, how can I complain? And then Horizon 2, it seemed like a step back from the first one. Like, I mean, at least to me, it seems that way. So it just seems odd that PlayStation snuck in 2 into the final awards, 3 if you want to count Stray. And then they talk about how they can't live without Call of Duty. But that's another topic. But I just don't like his process. Above all else, I think his process is flawed.
Yeah, it is a bit weird that like games get snubbed every year. Like, wouldn't you think best ongoing game, Grounded, would at least get a nomination? Because that was huge when it first released. You know, all the big streamers were
That's
playing it.
cool.
Uh,
That's a bunch of yeah.
yeah, and like they updated it. They got the new update out in September with the single player campaign and stuff. And it just seems like a missed opportunity. And like the fact that Forza was missing last year, but God of War is allowed this year, is it's a bit weird. And here's the thing: I always think that like with it being a Jeff Keighley show, like I honestly think Sony get a few tokens thrown in there because Horizon Forbidden West, I've not seen anyone outside of the fanboys say it's Game of the Year. Like I've seen more people talk about Vampire Survivors than Horizon Forbidden West. And if Elden Ring doesn't win, I don't understand how, because that's all people were talking about for 3 months on Twitter. Like, it's weird because like God of War might be Logan. I have to say your mics keep doing some buzzing thing.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
But yeah, like I think it'd be shocking if Elden Ring doesn't sweep everything. You know, I did vote for best narrative, A Plague Tale Requiem, because even though I'm only up to chapter 6, like it's incredible. And when it comes to narrative, like I think Elden Ring was a masterpiece, but when it comes to narrative, I'm doing air quotes, I don't think, it was the best. But yeah, I honestly think if Elden Ring doesn't win, there'll be riots, metaphorically speaking, on Twitter. But yeah, the snubbing thing, honestly, I think they should hold the reward ceremony in January. I know why.
Yes.
Yeah, I know why it's in December. Ad revenue is at its highest, right? If you run a big multi-million-dollar show and you have it out in the month of December, ad revenue is higher because there's more companies paying for advertising for the Christmas, sales. And that's why, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but it is weird because if games are still coming out in December, the Callisto Protocol is coming out. We've had Star Wars Jedi and Fallen Order miss it in the past, and it's just extremely weird. Made by Luke said in chat, Brazil will stop if Elden Ring will not win GOTY. Like, look, as much as people like God of War, and as cool as it may look, people aren't going to be talking about it like they are with Elden Ring. Elden Ring's going to be talked about for a decade. Like, look at Dark Souls, came out in 2009 or something like that, and people are still talking about it to this day. And then you have Elden Ring, which is a bigger game with more lore, more enemies, on a bigger scale. And it's like, to me, it just makes sense that Elden Ring wins. Like, Logan, do you think Elden Ring will pretty much win across the board?
I would say it certainly should. Will it? I don't know. Sometimes it feels like there's some weird choices in the award process, but if it were me, I think it would sweep most of its categories. I agree with you on narrative. I think A Plague Tale or something like that deserve it over Elden Ring. Even though the Elden Ring lore is super fascinating, it's not like a strong, focused narrative like A Plague Tale. So, and something like that, I could see it not winning. But pretty much everything else, I think it would sweep. And then, like you were saying about the award process, if you want to be the quote gaming Oscars, act like it. Have your event where you actually cover the entire year of gaming. I am still to this day salty about Jedi Fallen Order, which was my game of the year that year. It getting tossed to the wolves in the next year's cycle, which was ludicrously stacked the next year. I mean, that's what's going to happen to Pentiment and Callisto Protocol and all these other good games that are coming out late in the year, because they're going to get thrown in with Starfield, Redfall, all these other, historically stacked year, and they're just going to say, good luck, sink or swim. It's like, it's not fair. I mean, I know life's not fair, but if it's a Game of the Year awards, it shouldn't be, okay, it's January to November 5th awards. And then we have December and thrown into the next year. So basically, it's just, the process is flawed. Among other things, Never take the nominations if you agree with who they put in a category, but at least be consistent and go, hey, this is a whole year's awards for games, not just a few months. And be consistent with your cutoff dates. You don't. I know some people don't like the idea of it, but I do think there is a case that Forza was held against it, that it was a quote car game. Period. Like, it was breathtaking, it was a wonderful game, well crafted, but it just doesn't scratch that itch that these narrative games have for reviewers particularly. They have a real, you know, love for that kind of thing. So to me, it was hurt that it was a quote just car game, even though impact wise and all this other stuff, I say it definitely deserved to be in the Game of the Year race.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. Before we close out the show, I want to go over a few of the other what do you call it, nominations and stuff and categories. So, best adaptation. These are the nominations, by the way. Arcane, League of Legends. I still haven't watched that. Heard good things. Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I'll admit I voted for that. Incredible from what I've seen. The Cuphead Show, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and the Uncharted movie. Which one is the outlier? Now, bear in mind, I actually liked the Uncharted movie. It was a fun action flick, but you can't really put those against the other nominations, in my opinion. Games for Impact, stuff like that. I'll never understand all the esports categories. I've never heard of them. Yeah, it's a weird one. Best content creator, that's a weird one, because you have Carl Jacobs. I'll admit, no idea who that is. Ludwig, who I voted for. You have Nibellion from Twitter. Nobu and QT Cinderella. Honestly, I think Nibellion being on here doesn't make much sense. Like, he did amazing news on Twitter. He was always posting news when it was available, but I don't know, having a Twitter person make content, I don't know. Logan, what's your thought on that before we close out the show? Because I thought, really, a Twitter person?
Well, honestly, he kind of did the job for a lot of journalists, to be honest. Like, he gathered the news, and many people found out about news from him sharing others. He was like the ultimate aggregator incarnate, kind of. And so many people got their news from him. Him leaving makes it where more people have to do the hard work to gather their news and do all this other stuff. So, whether I'd consider him a content creator or not, I don't know. I'm not invested or up in arms about it. But he definitely had an impact, and him being gone has been noticeable. But I don't know. I just think some of the categories on here are a little quirky, and him trying to just throw in some stuff in between commercials.
Yeah, I think they should just have like a journalism section as well, because I think Nibellion would win that when it comes to journalism on Twitter. But the content creator, in my opinion, is just streaming and people literally make videos. But hopefully he'll come back to Twitter at some point, because he always did good stuff. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Everyone in chat's been awesome. The bots have been annoying, but they expected. Logan, have you got anything coming up soon?
Oh no! Besides playing COD on my PlayStation, no.
Yeah, we'll all be playing Warzone after we've downloaded the 5,000 gigabyte file. Anyway, we'll be back at the same time next week. Hopefully, my COVID will be gone by then, because it's annoying. Let's face it. Anyway, everyone in chat's been good. I'll see everyone on Twitter again. Back this time next week. I will finally have my video out this week. It's been a while. I think people will really want to pay attention to it. Anyway, thanks for everyone tuning in. We'll be back next week. We are out. Peace.